Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and felt that something wasn't right? Their words were calm, their tone sincere, but deep down, a quiet voice whispered, "This isn't truth." It's strange how lies rarely come wearing a mask. They arrive with warmth, with charm, with the illusion of honesty. And before you realize it, you're not questioning their story, you're questioning your own mind. That's the quiet cruelty of deception. It doesn't just distort what you see, it makes you doubt that you can see at all. But here's a truth few people understand. Lies only live when your mind reacts. When you learn to stay still, when you learn to observe instead of absorb, the illusion falls apart on its own. Because silence, real, focused silence, is not weakness, it's power. The ancient Stoics understood this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Do not be overheated by the false image of things." Meaning, truth is not hidden by complexity, it's hidden by emotion. The louder the world becomes, the easier it is for deceit to slip through unnoticed. And so today, in an age where manipulation wears a smile, where words are carefully engineered to trigger a reaction, we need more than intellect to survive. We need clarity. Not the kind that comes from arguing, but the kind that comes from seeing, quietly. This is what I call the silent power, the ability to detect deception, not by aggression, but by stillness. Not by shouting over lies, but by seeing through them. In this video, we're going to explore how modern manipulation hides in plain sight, not through obvious lies, but through tone, through questions, through emotion. We'll uncover how people twist truth subtly, how they plant doubt, and how your own empathy can be turned against you. But most importantly, you'll learn how the Stoics, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, trained the mind to stay unshakable, no matter how convincing the lie. Because if you can master silence, if you can watch without reacting, then you possess something that no manipulator can touch: your perception. Stay until the end. Not for me, but for yourself. Because somewhere in the noise of modern life, you've already encountered deception. Maybe in a relationship, maybe at work, maybe even within your own thoughts. And once you see how lies truly work, you'll never fall for them again. So take a breath. Settle your mind. Let's begin our journey into the silent power of seeing through lies. Section 1. The Illusion of Sincerity. There is a strange comfort in sincerity. When someone looks you in the eyes and says, "Trust me," your mind wants to believe them, because belief feels easier than doubt. We want to live in a world where words mean what they sound like, where tone equals truth. But here's the quiet danger. Some of the most convincing liars don't shout, they whisper. They don't argue, they reassure. The illusion of sincerity is one of the oldest tricks of deception. It works not because people are foolish, but because people want to see good. Manipulators understand this. They wear empathy like perfume, strong enough to reach your senses, soft enough to lower your guard. They know how to mirror your feelings,
how to say the right words at the right time, how to look hurt when you question them. It's not honesty, it's performance. And the better the performance, the more you start doubting your own perception. Epictetus once warned, "Appearances are of 4 kinds. Things are and appear to be. Things are not and yet appear to be. Things are and yet do not appear to be. And things are not and do not appear to be." He meant that perception is a fragile gate, and deception enters when emotion guards it instead of reason. Think about the time someone used kindness as camouflage. A coworker who flatters you before quietly undermining your credibility. A friend who listens deeply, but only when it serves their need for gossip. A lover whose words drip with care until you disagree with them, and suddenly that warmth turns to cold silence. That's how the illusion works. Not through lies shouted loudly, but through truths half-spoken gently. Their calm tone says, "I care." Their body language says, "You can trust me." But their intention whispers, "I just need your guard down." So how does the Stoic see through this? Not with suspicion, but with observation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The mind should be like a standing soldier, alert and ready, but never anxious." The Stoic watches the words, but also the timing, the tone, the consistency between speech and action. He understands that sincerity without integrity is only decoration. Real sincerity doesn't need to look sincere. It doesn't crave validation. It doesn't perform. It simply exists quietly, consistently, like a steady flame that doesn't flicker when challenged. To see through the illusion of sincerity, you must learn the art of still watching. When someone speaks with too much sweetness, pause. When someone rushes to convince you of their goodness, pause again. Not because you're cold or paranoid, but because truth never fears a pause. Only lies do. In that small silence between their words and your reply, you'll notice things. Micro-expressions, contradictions, tiny moments when their mask slips. Their smile doesn't reach the eyes. Their voice wavers when you ask a simple question. Their calm becomes agitation the moment you don't agree. These are not signs of sincerity. They're signs of performance breaking down. Seneca once said, "A good character, when observed, stands the test of scrutiny." If your silence makes someone uncomfortable, it's often because they're not used to being seen. A liar expects you to react. They prepare for your anger, your defense, your confusion, but they never prepare for your calm. When you stay still, when you meet their sincerity with quiet attention, they lose control. Their illusion collapses because the performance only works when the audience keeps applauding. So, the next time someone showers you with sudden kindness, asks for your trust too quickly, or tries to make you feel guilty for hesitating, don't react. Don't explain. Simply observe. Because in the space of silence, truth reveals itself without your effort. Remember, the Stoic doesn't accuse, he doesn't attack, he simply sees. And that alone is enough to dissolve the lie.
Section 2. The question that controls the mind. Some of the most dangerous lies are not statements, they're questions. Why are you overreacting? Don't you trust me? Are you really going to make a big deal out of this? Each one sounds simple, harmless even, but hidden beneath them is a silent command. Doubt yourself. This is the manipulation of the mind. Instead of fighting your logic, a deceiver plants questions that make you fight it yourself. It's not about proving you wrong. It's about making you uncertain enough to silence your own intuition. The Stoics warned about this form of deception, not through words, but through thoughts. Epictetus taught, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things." In other words, it's not what someone says that enslaves you, it's how your mind receives it. Liars understand this perfectly. They don't attack your facts, they attack your confidence. They cloak manipulation in politeness. They make you feel impolite for defending yourself. You question the strange behavior, and suddenly you're made to feel like the accuser, like the one creating the problem. This is how control begins, not with force, but with framing. Imagine a spider weaving its web. Each thread is thin, almost invisible, but together they form a trap strong enough to hold something much larger than itself. That's what deceptive questions do. They weave small moments of doubt until your truth is tangled in someone else's narrative. Let's break one down. When someone asks, "Why are you being so sensitive?" they aren't seeking clarity. They're redefining your awareness as a flaw. They've just reframed your ability to feel as proof that you're unstable. And in that instant, the truth loses ground. The Stoic mind doesn't fall for this. It understands that language is a weapon only when you forget that you control interpretation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is mistaken, instruct them kindly. But if it is you who sees wrongly, learn gladly." He didn't say argue, he said see clearly. To a Stoic, the purpose of dialogue is not victory, it's understanding. So when a manipulator throws a deceptive question your way, you don't need to defend. You simply step outside the frame. If someone asks, "Are you accusing me of something?" you don't rush to say, "No, I didn't mean it that way." You breathe, you observe, and then calmly reply, "Should I be?" That one question returns ownership of the truth to you. It turns the mirror back around. Because every manipulative question is designed to make you defend yourself against an illusion. But once you realize the question itself is the trick, the illusion breaks. The Stoics practiced what they called proarlesis, the power of choice and how we interpret the world. You can't always control what someone says, but you can control how much authority you give their words inside your mind. The manipulator wants reaction, emotion, panic, guilt. The Stoic gives none. He sees the question, feels the tug on his emotions, and simply watches it pass like a cloud across a clear sky. Next time someone asks you something that makes your chest tighten, pause. Don't answer immediately. That small pause is where your freedom lives. Because if a question has the power to control you, it's not because it's clever. It's because it reached you before you could breathe. So breathe. Detach. Observe the structure of the question itself. Is it meant to clarify truth or to protect someone's lie? Once you learn to listen beneath the question, you'll begin to hear the motive behind it, and motives can never hide for long from a calm, observing mind. Seneca once said, "No man is deceived without his own consent." Harsh words, but powerful. It means deception loses its strength when you refuse to participate. You are not obligated to answer every question. You are not bound to explain your awareness, and you are not required to doubt your perception just because someone speaks softly. To see through lies, you must master one skill: the discipline to think slowly when others try to make you think fast, because speed is where truth dies. Stillness is where it survives. Section 3. The Guilt Trap. Guilt is one of the oldest tools of control. Unlike anger or fear, it doesn't shout, it whispers, and that's what makes it so powerful. You see, anger makes you push back, fear makes you run, but guilt makes you kneel. It convinces you that you owe the other person something, an explanation, an apology, a second chance, even when you've done nothing wrong. Manipulators understand this better than anyone. They know that truth can't always be twisted, but emotions can. So instead of arguing with your logic, they target your empathy. They take the best part of you, your compassion, and use it against you. Maybe you've heard phrases like these. I can't believe you'd think of that of me after everything I've done. You're really going to make me feel like the bad guy? I guess I just care more than you do. Each line is coated in disappointment, but underneath it lies a demand. Feel guilty for seeing the truth. This is the guilt trap, a prison built from your own conscience. Seneca once said, "Guilt is the punishment of itself." He meant that guilt, when undeserved, is self-inflicted suffering. It traps the mind in endless reflection. You replay moments, analyze words, search for the point where you might have been too harsh, too distant, too suspicious. Meanwhile, the liar watches quietly, knowing you're doing their work for them. That's the cruel genius of manipulation. It makes you your own jailer. The Stoics warned us against this. Epictetus taught that there are two realms in life, what we control and what we do not. Your intentions, your actions, your integrity, those belong to you. But another person's feelings, their interpretations, their emotions do not. And when someone tries to make you responsible for their discomfort, they're not asking for empathy. They're demanding obedience. Imagine someone lies to you, and you finally confront them. Instead of acknowledging the truth, they look hurt and say, "Wow, I didn't know you thought so little of me." In that moment, the focus shifts. You start feeling cruel for even bringing it up. You backpedal, soften your tone, maybe even apologize. And just like that, the truth dies in silence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." He didn't say, "If it makes others comfortable, then silence yourself." Because truth doesn't bend to emotions. It simply is. When someone uses guilt to manipulate you, they're playing a simple game of redirection. They move the spotlight from their actions to your feelings. But a Stoic sees through that instantly. They recognize that emotions are data, not directives. They tell you how you feel, but not what you must do. So when guilt rises, pause. Don't fight it. Just look at it, as if observing a passing shadow. Ask yourself, is this guilt because I've done wrong, or because someone wants me to believe I have? That one question separates self-awareness from manipulation. Because authentic guilt serves growth. It teaches, it refines, it corrects. But imposed guilt, the kind that arrives from someone else's disapproval, is poison. It drains your strength while feeding their control. The Stoics practiced what we might call emotional hygiene, keeping the inner space clean from reactions that don't belong. When someone tried to guilt them, they would return to reason, to clarity. They would ask, "Is this within my control?" And if not, they released it. You are not cruel for setting boundaries. You are not unkind for asking for truth. And you are not heartless for walking away from someone who thrives on making you feel small.
A manipulator thrives on your emotional engagement. The more you explain, the deeper the hook. The more you defend, the more control they have. But when you meet guilt with quiet composure, when you say nothing and simply see, their power fades. Because guilt cannot survive where there is no reaction. True peace doesn't come from making others happy. It comes from staying aligned with what's right, even when it disappoints others. Seneca once wrote, "He who seeks to please all men will lose himself." And that is the heart of the Stoic defense. You do not live to please. You live to stay aligned with truth. So the next time someone says, "After everything I've done for you," or "You've really changed," don't rush to explain yourself. Let the silence answer for you, because silence speaks truth more clearly than guilt ever could.
Section 4. The Power of Silence. Silence. The word alone feels heavy, uncomfortable, mysterious, even threatening. Because in silence, truth has nowhere to hide. Most people fear it. Liars especially. They live through noise, through constant explanation, deflection, performance. Silence exposes them. It forces them to face the space where their words once hid the truth. That's why silence, in the hands of a wise person, is not absence, it's authority. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, "Be silent for the most part, or say only what is necessary." To him, silence wasn't passive. It was a weapon of discipline, a way of controlling the only thing that truly matters, your own energy. When someone lies to you, your first instinct might be to argue, to prove, to fight. But that's what they want. Conflict keeps their illusion alive. Every word you say gives them something to twist, some new branch of confusion to grab hold of. Silence takes that away. It cuts off their supply of chaos. You see, words are the battlefield, but silence is the high ground. From there you see everything clearly, while they lose their footing in their own noise. Imagine this. A manipulator tells a half-truth, expecting your reaction. They wait for your disbelief, your emotion, your protest. But you don't respond. You just look at them, calm, steady, unmoved. The silence stretches, and in that stillness, their performance begins to crumble. They start filling the space, over-explaining, backtracking, trying to fill the air that once protected their lie. Because silence turns their weapon back on them. Seneca wrote, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." Silence is that restraint. It's the art of refusing to bleed when someone cuts you with words. But let's be clear, silence is not avoidance, it's clarity. When you are silent, you're not surrendering, you're studying. You're listening to tone, to timing, to motive. You're seeing what truth cannot be said aloud. The Stoics often practiced long periods of quiet reflection, not to escape the world, but to see it as it truly is. They believed that truth doesn't need to be defended, it only needs to be understood. In silence, your emotions settle, your perspective sharpens, and you begin to see not only others clearly, but yourself. That's where real strength begins. Not in controlling others, but in mastering your reactions. Liars hate that. They rely on the predictability of your emotions. When you don't react, you take back every ounce of power they once had. Because the truth is, Silence makes people reveal themselves. Give anyone enough quiet, and they'll start talking. Not because they want to, but because they can't bear what the silence says about them. The Stoics called this apatheia. Not apathy, but freedom from unnecessary disturbance. It means staying centered while the world trembles around you. When someone lies to you, and you stay calm, they feel the weight of their own dishonesty echo back at them. That's why silence feels so heavy. It reflects everything. Think of it like standing before a still lake. You can see your reflection perfectly, but only because the water doesn't move. That's what your silence does to deceit. It forces the liar to see themselves clearly and painfully. But here's the deeper truth. Silence is not just about others. It's about you. Because in your own quiet moments, you face the lies you tell yourself. The ones that whisper, "I'm not enough," or "I should have seen it coming." You learn to separate guilt from growth, emotion from awareness. And that self-honesty, that calm seeing, is what the Stoics called wisdom. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength. Not noise, not reaction. Calm. That's where true power resides." So the next time someone tries to provoke you, tries to bait you into defending what you know is right, say nothing. Not from fear, but from confidence. Let your silence tell the truth you already know. Because words can be twisted. Emotions can be manipulated. But silence cannot be faked. It is the language of those who no longer need to prove.
Section 5. The mirror of the mind.
The human mind is a mirror. It reflects everything it looks upon: truth, lies, emotion, memory, fear. But here's the problem. Most people mistake the reflection for the reality. When someone deceives you, they're not really hiding the truth. They're hiding your ability to see it. They cloud your mirror with guilt, with confusion, with noise, until you no longer tell what's real and what's just a reflection of your fear. The Stoics understood this better than any philosopher or poet. They believed perception is not the window to truth, it's the filter of it. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. He didn't mean to ignore reality, he meant to see it clearly, without the fog of reaction. And that's what makes the Stoic mind dangerous to deceivers. You can't lie to someone who has learned to question their own perception before questioning others. The Stoic asks, why do I feel this way? Is this emotion justified, or is it planted? Am I seeing what's true, or what I want to be true? These questions polish the mirror. They restore clarity, because the truth isn't hidden outside of you. It's hidden beneath your assumptions. The liar can manipulate your sight, but not your awareness if you learn to look within first. Let's imagine a moment. Someone tells you something that feels off. Not obviously false, but just slightly wrong, like a note played half a second too late. You feel the disturbance immediately. Your instincts whisper, this doesn't fit. But instead of reacting, you pause. You watch. You let the mirror of your mind stay still. And slowly the distortion reveals itself. Their tone doesn't match their words. Their story shifts slightly each time. Their eyes glance away at the wrong moment. You begin to see. This is not magic, it's presence. And presence is the rarest form of intelligence. Marcus Aurelius said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. When your thoughts are calm, your perception is clear. When your mind is disturbed, even truth looks suspicious. That's why the Stoic strives for stillness. Not detachment from life, but mastery over reaction. Liars depend on your internal chaos. They rely on you to jump, to question yourself, to defend. But when you observe instead of react, you shift from the target to the witness. And witnesses cannot be manipulated. Only participants can. The Stoic doesn't ask, is this person lying to me? He asks, what in me wants to believe them? Because often deception works not because the liar is skilled, but because the listener is hopeful. We all want certain things to be true. We want love to be honest, friendship to be loyal, words to mean what they say. And it's in that wanting that lies find their entry. The Stoic learns to want truth more than comfort, and that shift changes everything. Once you value truth above feelings, lies lose their currency. They can no longer buy your belief. Seneca once wrote, "No man is more cheated than the self-deceiver." It's a brutal statement, but it reminds us that the hardest lies to see are the ones we tell ourselves. The times we say, "It's fine," when you isn't. Or, "They didn't mean it," when they did. These small daily lies erode the mirror of the mind. And when your reflection becomes distorted, others can control what you see. So the Stoic cleans that mirror daily through reflection, solitude, silence. He doesn't run from emotion. He observes it, questions it, understands its cause. And when he does, no one can use that emotion against him. That's what makes seeing through lies so powerful. It's not about exposing others, it's about awakening yourself. Because the moment you see clearly, manipulation ends instantly. The liar may continue to speak, they may weave their web with words, but you've already stepped outside of it. You're not angry, you're not hurt, you simply see. And that sight, that calm, piercing awareness, is something no one can fake. When you master the mirror of your own mind, you don't just see through lies. You see through illusion. The illusion of control, of power, of reputation. You begin to live in truth. Not because it's easy, but because it's unshakable. As Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone can show me that what I think or do is wrong, I will happily change, for I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone." The harm is to persist in one's own self-deception. And that is the ultimate Stoic strength, not to always be right, but to always be real.
Section 6. The freedom of clarity. When the fog finally lifts, the world looks different. The same people, the same places, but everything feels sharper, cleaner, realer. It's not that others have changed, it's that you have. You've learned to see without the filters of hope, fear, or illusion. You've learned to see with clarity. Clarity isn't cold. It isn't cynicism. It's the warm, steady flame that lights the truth, without judgment, without denial. Liars and manipulators depend on blindness. They depend on the confusion of those who live chasing emotional comfort instead of mental clarity. But once you start valuing truth above comfort, you become impossible to control. Because control requires attachment. It requires your fear, your guilt, your need for approval. But clarity dissolves all of that. It teaches you something the Stoics lived by, that peace is not found in avoiding lies, but in becoming immune to them. Seneca once wrote, "Calm is not the absence of storms, but the mastery of stillness within them." That is the essence of Stoic clarity. You stop fearing deceit because you've stopped fearing truth. You no longer run from uncomfortable realizations. You stand still. You look them in the eye and you say, "Show me." That moment of stillness,
That quiet courage to face what is real is the beginning of freedom. Freedom from manipulation, freedom from guilt, freedom from the exhausting performance of trying to please everyone around you. Because when you live in truth, you don't need to defend it. Truth doesn't panic. It doesn't beg to be believed. It simply stands, unshakable, like a mountain beneath passing clouds. The Stoic walks through life this way, aware but detached, empathetic but not entangled. He listens deeply, but he doesn't absorb deception. He observes the game, but never plays it. And in that awareness, there is a deep silence, the kind that doesn't come from ignorance, but from understanding. That silence is power. Because in silence, lies die. They cannot survive without reaction. They cannot feed without your energy. They wither when met with calm observation. When a manipulator lies, they expect chaos. They expect you to doubt, to chase, to plead. But when you simply breathe and remain still, you become their undoing. Marcus Aurelius said, "To live happily is an inward power of the soul." He meant that peace doesn't depend on what others do. It depends on how clearly you see. So what does it mean to see clearly? It means to look at things as they are, not as you wish them to be, and not as others want you to believe. It means recognizing that deception exists, but it no longer owns you. It means walking through a noisy, deceitful world without losing your balance.
Conclusion: the unshakable mind.
The Stoic doesn't hunt lies, he outgrows them. He outgrows the need to argue, to expose, to prove. Because once you see, you realize truth defends itself. And this is the final transformation. You stop fighting liars and start mastering yourself. You stop chasing clarity in others and start building it within. That's the paradox of the Stoic way. You don't destroy the darkness by fighting it. You dissolve it by shining light. And light begins with awareness. The awareness that everything external, praise, blame, manipulation, deceit, has no real power over the mind that has learned to stand still. So the next time you feel someone twisting your reality, pause, breathe, and quietly ask yourself, what belongs to me here, and what doesn't? Their words, their emotions, their guilt, none of that belongs to you. What belongs to you is your perception, your reason, your calm. Guard them fiercely, because when you hold on to these, no one can take your peace. No one can rewrite your reality. No one can pull you into their illusion. That's what the ancients knew. That strength isn't about dominating others. It's about mastering perception. It's about being free even in the presence of deceit. Seneca called it the freedom of the wise man, a freedom that comes not from control, but from clarity. He wrote, "No one can enslave the man who knows himself." And when you know yourself, your values, your vision, your truth, you become untouchable. So if you ever felt small, confused, gaslighted, remember this: your awareness is your armor, your calm is your sword, and your clarity, that quiet, unshakable clarity, is your freedom. The world will always have liars, but you don't have to live as their victim. You can live as their mirror, reflecting their illusions back to them until they fade into nothing. Because the Stoic doesn't conquer others. He conquers confusion. He stands in the storm, sees through the fog, and walks on, calm, clear, unshakable. If this message spoke to you, if it made you pause and reflect, don't let it end here. Carry it with you. Practice seeing, not reacting.
and share this with someone who might still be caught in the fog. Remember, awareness is contagious. The more you see, the more you help others see. So like, share, and write just 3 words below. I choose clarity. Because that choice, right now, in this moment, is the beginning of your freedom.